This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings. Online at madeformorerealty.com.
So we were talking a little bit about,
politics. Because you're so passionate when it comes to politics.
and the
even though you say
debt.
as a real estate industry leader, you like to be apolitical. You don't like to lean to the right or to the left. You like to stay middle of the road and just decide and do things that make sense.
Yeah,
just have
but
common sense.
I'm just talking about like cause and effect. Now, I'm not talking about.
Now we're talking about physics.
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about policies. I'm not talking about programs. I'm not talking about rights. I'm just talking about if you
dollars
if you're dollars and cents. If you can't pay back your debt, that's going to have a cataclysmic event globally, and that's going to not impact my kids. And so now I'm looking at it now. What is it? How is it going to impact me? Not how is it going to impact me now, but how is it going to impact my kids in 20, 30, 50 years?
Got it. So you're president of the United States. You've got one side of the aisle is very passionate Democrats, some of them who think we should live in a socialistic society. And then you have Republicans who many of them do want to make cuts, but they also want to make sure that they're pleasing their voters and providing those social programs that they want. So how do you negotiate that, Johnny? How do you figure out a bill that both parties will vote on?
I think you just cannot raise the debt.
You just shut down government?
I'm not shutting down the government. The House of Representatives is shutting down government. The state, the Senate is shutting down the government because you guys can't come to an agreement on how to balance the budget. I didn't shut it down.
But you're not going to get both parties to agree perfectly on what you're wanting. There's no way you're going to get Democrats in the House and the Senate to,
So if I was president of the United States, the one thing I would campaign on, and it would absolutely not get me elected, is we're gonna put an amendment in the Constitution that says you have to balance the budget.
So how would you eliminate $5 trillion from the budget?
How would I eliminate it?
You can't do it through fraud and waste. Elon tried that. He didn't get anywhere near that.
That's because that's where a lot of it is, and people, that's how they call it the swamp for a reason, but we don't. So how would I do it? We don't have to necessarily get into it, but I think there's a way to do it slowly, but ultimately.
And that's what President Trump is saying. Slowly, there's a way to get to it.
But slowly is like measured improvement rather than regression.
No, I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you've put it on record, and we'll see what happens. If our country collapses economically, then you heard it first on this July 5th, 2025 from Johnny Jennings.
That'll be your consolation. Yes, you heard it from Johnny.
I knew it. I told you guys.
Yeah. But hey, as far as real estate goes, I have been hearing people for years, probably a decade, say, hey, when prices come down, I will buy.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
They've been saying when prices come down, I will buy. Well, guess what? Your time has come. If you've been waiting, now is the time. It is a great time to be a buyer.
Don't they also want to wait till it's at the bottom? Like they say, I want to wait till prices come down, but all the way down till they're at the rock bottom.
So what's the? I guess the what do they say? Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. So what some people like to do, if they're really trying to time the market, is imagine like a V, like a little trough.
Yeah.
What some people don't want to do is they don't want to buy on the one side of the trough because they don't know how much lower it's going to go. But once it starts coming back up, okay, it looks like we're on the upswing, and then buy there. So it's very difficult to buy in the absolute lowest.
Sure.
But here's the thing is nobody knows how far that's going to go down.
Right, exactly.
And if right now the numbers are making sense, like recently we got somebody on our team got in contract for $250,000 less than the two houses that sold for across the street.
Wow.
So the two houses across the street sold for 1.2. They're in contract for like 950, right? And so that's a screaming deal. Recently, we just got somebody in a home that is only $3,000 out of pocket. This is a first-time home buyer. So they bought like a $550,000 home, and it only cost them $3,000 out of pocket.
And are sellers discouraged about that? And I'm not talking about those that are in the thinking about selling and looking at values of homes and what they're selling for, once they sign that contract and they finally have cash in hand, are they extremely discouraged or disappointed that they had to lower the selling price?
Yeah, I would definitely say yes, because they were hoping to get more, but the market's worth what the market's worth. Like our home, like we do so much marketing. We spend thousands of dollars, traditional, digital, social media, Bay Area. We have a team of people that call through communities looking for buyers. We have a database. We do so much. But at the end of the day, the house is only worth what the house is worth.
Right.
The good news is, though, if the market's going down, well, guess what? Most people who, own a home want to live in a home. And so that means they're selling this house and buying something else. And so their replacement property is also less expensive.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a wash for them. So the only thing that really hurts when somebody's selling a house is when they are moving into like a retirement facility, or maybe they're moving like across the country and they were hoping to buy in a more affordable part of the world.
Yeah.
And now they're getting less for their home in California than they were hoping for.
Right.
But generally speaking, especially if you're staying local, so your home went down X, the home that you were looking at probably went down X.
Right.
And so my advice to home buyers is don't try to time the market. You've been waiting for the market to come down. It's come down. You can get in a house for $3,000. We helped somebody not that long.
And so how were you able to accomplish that?
So it's a combination of the loan that they were able to qualify for and the seller paying for credits.
Oh, okay. There you go.
And so
because you have motivated sellers who want to make things happen, and so they're willing to do things like that.
Yeah, and sometimes, for example, we're trying to negotiate something right now where I don't quote me on the prices, but let's say the house is listed for $700,000. The person wants $20,000 in credits, right? They don't have the closing cost credit, the closing cost funds, and so they're trying to get it from the seller. Well, the seller wants to still get top dollar, so how about we bump the price up a little bit?
Right.
Maybe bump the price from $700 to $710, $715, and still give them their credits. So the seller gets what they want, the buyer gets what they want, and the buyer's able to move in with a little money out of pocket.
Can you explain for people that are not familiar with what you just talked about how that would work if someone wants to purchase a home but they don't have? Are you saying they don't have the closing cost, and so the seller pays all of those? You're not talking about the down payment. You're talking about the closing costs.
Yeah. So how it works is when you're buying a house, think of three buckets. There's three main buckets of expenses. The first is what most people think about. That's the down payment. Right. The second is any repairs that may need to be made to the home. Right, or inspections, right, and then the third are your closing costs. That's like title, escrow, notary fees, your lender fees if you're getting a home loan, those types of things. And so, depending on the loan you're getting, you're able to get so much in credits from the home owner. Right. Okay. And so that helps reduce the amount of money you need to bring to the table. I mean, a crazy example is we had somebody who bought a house with only $500 out of pocket.
That does not include the down payment then, correct?
No,
when you say out of pocket.
Because there's down payment assistance programs, right? So if you can help get the down payment covered and you can get some help with closing costs.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Valerie and I used to do it all the time in Kalinga, right? Almost $500 all day long could get you a house. Wow. Yeah. And so, I mean, up here it might be $3,000, but still, we're not talking about a house worth $250,000.
Because I think there's a lot of people, especially young people, and we could talk about that new study, but they're concerned about that big chunk of down payment because they maybe have not saved up for that, and they just got a new job or they've gotten married and they haven't had time to save up, but they want to get a home, and so that's their biggest concern. Oh, how much am I going to have to put down? I'm really concerned about. But what do you think about that new study that says 1 in 4, I think, homes that are purchased now are from Gen Zers? I think it was 18 to 28 or somewhere around there. Okay. Gen Zers now are not discouraged by what the market looks like right now. They are interested in purchasing a home. How would you interpret that? What's the mindset there?
I think that's really encouraging because you hear a lot of people complaining, right? And to have an entire demographic of people making up 25% of the buyer pool, that just says that, hey, there are options out there if you're going to explore them. Yeah. And so there's just so many down payment assistance programs. The Gen Zs, they're different. Like they don't, from my understanding, they're not really into alcohol. They're more into weed. You know, they. You know,
what does that have to do with anything?
Well, they're just bucking cultural norms. And
gotcha.
And so for people being nervous about, jumping into home ownership and being committed to that, if
they want something, they want those traditional things.
If they want that, then more power to them. I would say if I was a Gen Zer, and this isn't me just blindly saying this. This is actually what Valerie and I did. Is the first house you should buy, it should be an investment property. So whether it has an ADU, a mother-in-law unit, whether it's a duplex, triplex.
Why?
Because then you can take advantage of those first-time homeowner programs and buy an investment property. It's really hard to then use those programs to buy your first home and then turn around and try to buy an investment property.
So you're saying buy an investment property and live in an apartment?
No, buy an investment property and live there. So let's say the property has a mother-in-law unit. You're a single dude. You live in the mother-in-law unit.
Oh, so buy a specific property that provides that opportunity, that has that extra living space that you can rent out.
Yeah, or like a triplex, right? There's 3 separate units.
Are there a lot of those available?
Absolutely. There's so many, and you can also buy one, and you can use buy a regular home, but there's room for an ADU, and there's special loans out there where you can actually build the ADU and then start renting it out.
There you go. That's smart.
So if it doesn't even exist, maybe the numbers work for you to just create the equity, create that investment opportunity.
Because I know in the past few months we've talked about how you thought maybe this culture is kind of shifting to where we're going to turn into, and maybe it's not the culture, maybe it's just the way the economics are working, is that we're turning into a society where we just become renters, like Europe. But, we're hearing that maybe that's not necessarily the case. At least Gen Zers are interested in actually owning a home instead of just renting for the rest of their lives.
We'll see how it plays out. I still stand by what I said earlier.
You do?
Oh, absolutely.
And because it's regardless of what the Gen Zers want, it's just the matter of economics that you have all these large corporations that are buying up homes and just turning them into rentals.
Yeah, I mean they're building homes to rent.
Yeah,
they're not even hitting the market. There's no option for Gen Z to go in there with their first-time home buyer loan and pick up the property. And so I think that the economics is such that
wow,
Gen Z, we're gonna.
That is so.
How many people own their phone? How many people own their phone outright?
Well, I do.
Well, your phone's from 1995.
No, it's an iPhone 12, and I buy my phones used. But I don't. So you say most people lease their phones?
Most people have payments on their phones.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have payment on a phone, how are you gonna all of a sudden decide? You know what? I want to own my house.
I know. I think that's bad though for our society.
I agree. I'm not pro it,
right.
but that's the way it's leaning. That's the way it's going.
Well, it goes back to our conversation about the big beautiful bill. I think people just realize or just come to the conclusion we're always going to be in debt. We're always going to have debt. We're always going to have a car payment. We're always going to be in debt to somebody. We're always going to be making payments.
Yep.
And owning nothing. Right? Paying someone always and owning nothing.
Control everything, own nothing.
Yeah. But hey, isn't there a spiritual perspective to that? Isn't the Bible talk about don't store up your treasures here on earth?
There you go.
Don't store up your treasures here on earth. Store them in someone else's bank account.
There you go. Hey, I'm just doing what the good Lord suggested. But no, in all seriousness, if you're looking to buy a house, now's a great time. If you're looking to sell a house, you know what? Now might be the best time that you're going to see in 12 months. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, just be willing to sit on that home a little bit longer than you were hoping for. If you'd like more information or you want to just have a conversation with me, I do this all the time. It doesn't cost anything. I'm happy to just go over options. Just reach out to us. Just go to madeformorerealty.com. You can Google us, madeformorerealty.com, and we're happy to sit down and go over, put a game plan together for you.
Talk politics and the big beautiful bill.
I will absolutely not do that. All right. Thanks, Matt.